Good evening, it's Kuro. Got a Tier 8 game and my Tier 7 Leningrad. Going over the matchmaking, got a Tier 6 CV. Apparently I'm hot to trot. Looking at no real radar threats. We do have a couple cruisers though that can be dangerous. Leander's smoking up as always can be pain in the ass. Hipper is actually a pretty decent threat because just how fast the guns are. Uh, Looking at the destroyers, um, pretty much Akatsuki, Shiratsuyu, their detection threats. Ganevny, I should just be able to outclass being a tier higher than him. Um, so that's what we got right now. Now, flag-wise, I am running both fire flags and a speed flag. I guess here you can see just what the torpedo arcs look like. The gun arcs are pretty good. Um, this turret here is rear facing, so there's a lot of synergy with this destroyer and kiting. The gun configuration really makes this destroyer work. I mean, if you haven't figured it out yet, I'm not anywhere close to full speed and I'm well over 40 knots. This thing is a goddamn rocket ship. I'm running maximum concealment on it, 6.6 kilometers. That's pretty reasonable for a ship with this kind of firepower. This is 530 millimeter guns. Um, she's no slouch. The torpedoes, they're pay to win. Um, this is mostly a Minsk with 8-kilometer torps. I mean, these torps, they reload pretty quick. They hit pretty hard. They've got good concealment. Um, if I wanted to, I could probably play this thing as, just a straight torp boat, and they're just that good. You'd never want to because the guns on this destroyer are absolutely fantastic. So, second target I spot is the Hipper, and that's not really what I want, but I see this Hipper's pushing up, so I'm gonna throw some Make-A-Wish torpedoes out there thinking that when this guy gets spotted, he might try to turn out. Doesn't really happen, he just kind of hugs that island. Smart move on his behalf. But I do spot the Akatsuki and Shiratsuyu. And I'm going to work on this Akatsuki, and you can see just how fast I am. That Akatsuki still hasn't hit me. Nobody's actually hit me yet. Been having a little bit of a potato aim hitting this Akatsuki. The guns on this are absolutely fantastic. Haven't played this ship in a while, so just kind of getting a feel for her again. She is a boat that does require expert marksmen. The turrets are just painfully slow. I slow down to try to get some additional shots on this Ganiza now. That of course is the only time that I actually really eat damage. So I'm going to use my first smoke screen up here. And my intent pushing up here, was kind of twofold. We were kind of light over here, so I wanted to push ahead, get some really early scouting from my team, figure out what's down here. That way, maybe these guys don't get too far before we, pull them back to reinforce. It is a standard battle. We need to defend both sides of the map. The other was, it seemed like the enemy team was really slow deploying out, and me making this just like power run down here has already started threatening to turn their flank. And if I'm able to get in past them and start working up the back line, they're constantly going to have somebody that they're either going to need to turn their guns away from, the main threat of my enemy team, or they're just going to be constantly being shot at, from their flank. And it's not a good comforting position to be in. A lot of players will make mistakes when they're in that situation. Coming out of the smoke, spot the Akatsuki again. Just kiting away, and I pick up, that's a lucky detonation on that Akatsuki, but honestly, I'd kill that guy one way or another. All of these shots, he still hasn't hit me once. That's just a foregone conclusion, whether, easy dodge. But that was just a foregone conclusion that, I'd pick up that kill. Loading AP, broadside Leander. And you can kind of see, the AP that's pretty serious. I mean, that was 3 overpens on a broadside cruiser at nearly 10 kilometers. The AP has a significant amount of pen. I have no doubt if I was broadside to that ship, that I would be able to citadel it pretty easily at, probably 7 kilometers or more, maybe a little more with AP. But at this point, my team's getting pushed by this this Alabama. So I just want to make sure that we get some pressure on this guy, and I finally get a fire there. It only took 54 shell hits for my first fire. Alabama goes down to the Jervis's torps. This Jervis really is benefiting from my pressure. He's able to just constantly smoke up, whereas I am just constantly moving around, constantly, keeping, people occupied, basically. The few times they do shoot at me, this destroyer, between its speed, it's got a quick rudder shift, an okay turning circle. You can really speed tank a lot with this ship and still be successful all game. Just trying to get some additional fires here. This Jervis was able to get both of the double fires, so kind of pays off for him. But I'm just sitting here, just farming away. Now really, with this kind of fire RNG, I should be using AP. I'd be netting a lot more effective DPM just because I'm not getting the fires. So with the flank secure, we're going to push up towards the enemy cap, start pressuring the backfield. And I mean, that's kind of how you want to play this. Take a look at, some of my other Russian gunboat videos. I've got a few on Grozovoy, where your fight swings more on, dealing with the enemy support than it actually does dealing with the enemy destroyers. Your primary target, however, is always neutralizing any destroyers you see, because they're the guys that can actually outspot you and keep you out of the caps and those kinds of things. Your interest in the enemy cruisers and battleships, aside from just harassing them, is to pressure them out away from the caps, away from anywhere that the enemy destroyers want them to be, so you can push in close and basically run down the enemy DDs. So at this point, just switching targets to this Bismarck. This game's over, so I'm just shooting for, the most amount of raw damage that I can get at this point. That would be fires on a battleship. I mean, you look, all sorts of things are still having trouble hitting me. I'm up, gonna be breaking 1 million potential damage here soon, and you see just how really unaffected I've been by most of their fire. And that's just, this ship is just that fast. So this game's going to be winding down here shortly. I mean, the disappointing thing for me in this game was just the utter lack of fires. It's been a while since I've had such bad RNG that, this game was pretty frustrating in that respect, that, you just constantly shooting and just no real payoff for it. But that's RNG sometimes, and any type of gunboat that you're gonna buy, you are kind of dependent on RNG to an extent. This Bismarck goes down, and that's game. So 78K. This could have been a lot higher if I would have gotten lucky with some of the RNG. The Jervis that was with me, this guy, he really got all of the damage with unrepairable fires and stuff like that. He was able just to smoke up and steal them. Again, this Akatsuki, um, unfortunately detonates. Well, fortunately for me, it just saved me some time. But he was as good as dead anyway if he kept trying to pick a fight with me. 203 HE hits, 3 fires. Yeah. So taking a look at the credit screen, I was running a bunch of economic flags, but you can basically do the math and kind of figure it out. Um, Leningrad, she's a really fun ship. I mean, if you like gunboats, um, you can really go nuts with her. She's a really consistent destroyer too because uh, the guns are so consistent. Um, she does up tier all right. I would say not as good as like Haida, just because your concealment at 6.6 is still really large. Um, and with the higher tiers, obviously, your fire chance starts to drop off when you're shooting higher tier ships. Um, but your gun DPM is still really good for fighting other destroyers at range. Um, Most of the stuff that can really wreck you, it's all inside 7 kilometer stuff. So you can really play that support role where you're like a second line destroyer where, you know, a Japanese destroyer, something like that, goes in there, spots a DD, and you're able to basically really put in some extra DPM in that fight. That's a really effective way to run this destroyer in higher tiers. Um, but yeah, that's Leningrad. Unfortunately, wished I could have showed off the AP a little more. The AP is very consistent. It's got good damage, good DPM. Uh, but anyway, if you guys got any questions, comments, leave them below. And I will talk to you guys later. Hope you're having a good night.